Welcome back to the Investor Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Steven Pesavento, and today we have a very special episode. It's a three-part series from a group coaching session with one of my favorite people, one of my personal coaches and mentors, Trevor McGregor, where we dive into some of the lessons and some of the big takeaways on what some of the most successful operators and investors are currently doing today. And we dive into a ton of topics, from the importance of coaching to some of the things that you can apply right now to make a change happen in your life. And again, it's a three-part series. So if you're just joining us, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can catch all the episodes. And without further ado, let's get right into it. This is the Investor Mindset Podcast. Let me ask you something. Are you hitting success yet you know that there's another level? Or perhaps you're just getting started. You're trying to put all these pieces together, get your first deal, but something's holding you back. Or maybe you're going through a big change in your career and your life, but for some reason you just can't take the steps you need to know in order to move forward. Well, I've been having a lot of really incredible conversations with people who are in the exact same position as you are, and they've been able to make massive change happen very quickly. Whether that's doubling your income within just a few months, whether that's making some kind of big shift in your life and really unlocking that vision, or perhaps it's just getting clear on what that vision needs to be so that you can really take those steps. Of course, you guys know me, host of the Investor Mindset here, Steven Pesavento, and high performance coach. I've been working with clients for years, seeing and helping them see major results. And I'd love to set up a call to discover if it's possible to be able to help you with some of those same things. If you are in a position where you want more and you're committed to taking some steps to get there, then I encourage you to head over to investormindset.com/discover and let me know a little bit more information about you. Set up a call and we'll jump on and we'll walk through a discovery process. Totally complimentary. You'll walk away with a lot of clarity. And if there's some way that I can help serve you, I'll let you know that too. So you can just head over to investormindset.com/discover. And I look forward to seeing you there. Please make sure you got a pen and paper out. You're ready to take some notes and make some notes about what things you're going to take and execute. If you have questions, please make sure you drop them down in the chat. And if we have a few minutes at the end, we'll try to cover some of those questions. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So my good friend, Trevor McGregor, let's see, where should we start? What are some of the biggest challenges that your clients have been facing in 2020? And the reason I asked this question, to add a little bit of context, is to understand what are some of these big achievers dealing with from a challenge perspective, so that we can all recognize that we're all dealing with challenges, and we can talk a little bit about how to break through some of those challenges.
Well, I love the question, and it's a great question to kick it off, because I don't care if you are a veteran real estate investor, maybe you're an intermediate, maybe you're a newbie. I've never met a single investor, Steven, you or I included, that didn't face adversity as they tried to navigate building their empire, right? Everybody here knows that I coach Joe Fairless. Obviously, Joe is probably my most famous client, right? He's got $1 billion in assets under management with Ashcroft, but I've had a sneak peek into all of the different roller coaster rides that Joe has participated in. And again, 2020 has not been a picnic for all things Ashcroft, because again, there's always things that come up, whether you are looking for deals, whether you're trying to finance deals, maybe something in the due diligence process, maybe COVID has delayed things from a lender standpoint. I mean, I literally have a sneak peek into Joe's life, as well as, having done 25,000 other coaching calls. And so you got to remember that the very first thing, and we talk about it a lot, Steven, but it's worth mentioning that again, expert, intermediate, or newbie, that every problem is a problem of perspective. So let's unpack that together. Every problem is a problem of perspective. And again, we have seen through some really unique lenses here in 2020, but again, 42 days left in the year. What if it's possible that we take those lenses off and we start to see things through another lens? Even if you're facing tough times, even if you haven't been able to close as many deals, maybe you haven't got the funding you've wanted, maybe cap rates aren't to your liking, or maybe you're seeing that different asset classes are literally, different than they were 8 months ago. But what if we take on this belief that every problem is a problem of perspective, and it's the universe's way of inviting Stephen or Trevor or you to literally look at something a different way so that you solve the problem another way? Because again, I've never coached somebody that absolutely hit a wall and was stuck forever. There's always a way, Stephen, to go over it, under it, around it, or even through it. Would you agree?
I agree completely, because it's one of those things where we can continue to run into the wall over and over again. But when we make that determination, when we see it through that lens of saying, hey, well, this is actually an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to change, to shift, and we stop just going into that friction and we take a second to understand, well, maybe what is the better approach here? How can this actually serve me in a better way? We can end up coming out to a much more resourceful way of thinking and end up getting closer to where we actually want to go. And I think a lot of people right now maybe are starting to realize that COVID has actually had some amazing things. Yep. And it's been some really great benefits. And I know I can think of a few of them: spending more time with family, realizing the things that are a top priority. But when we can take that step back and look at that challenge as actually, something that's phenomenal, then we can much more effectively and easily be able to move through it. Is that right?
Well, it is. And again, it's like Tony Robbins says, and you're at a UPW, it's like, is life happening to me, or is life happening for me? Because I'll tell you, and I know your story and my story, we've built a lot of muscle along the way of adversity. And so even if 2020 hasn't been the ultimate year for our viewer or our listener, right? What if, a setback is a setup for a comeback? What if this has been the year for you to get, perspective on what markets you're in, what asset classes you're in? Should you be in a partnership? Should you plan your escape route out of a partnership where the partner's not bringing their stuff to the table? So again, it's through asking really powerful questions that you're able to get really, really crystal clear answers. And what I find, Stephen, is a lot of people are asking disempowering questions instead of, starting to find those empowering ones. And let's go through some examples, because if you're sitting there going, why do bad things always happen to me, right? Or why have I not been able to get the interest rate that the other guy got? Or why is this market so competitive? Your brain is going to come back with answers that answer bad answers to those bad questions versus, who do I need to be? Who's somebody I can reach out to? Who's an expert in their field, right? What are the foundational concepts that if I follow them as we come out of COVID or 2020 and into 2021, I'm looking at the data, and I talk to high performers in real estate all day, every day. 2021 is going to be a phenomenal feeding frenzy for anyone who's defiantly committed to growing in real estate. So I guess where we have to really ask the question is, is your glass half empty or is it half full? Because I don't want it even half full. I want Stephen and I to be pouring a pitcher of water into a glass where it's overflowing with opportunity. It's overflowing with empowering questions. It's overflowing with great people in the community that you could talk to, that you could partner with, that you could JV with. Because at the end of the day, real estate is not a game like golf. It's not a one-man show. You need people around you. I call them professional pillars to support your outcome. So, Stephen, does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. And it's only through taking that perspective, the perspective that you're sharing with us, that people are going to be able to take advantage and make the best of the opportunity that is to come in 2021, is because they're going to be prepared to be able to look at the challenge that's in front of them and be able to not feel bad for themselves, but instead to say, hey, well, I'm going to be able to move past this and on to bigger and better things.
Well, I like that you said that, because we know what it reminds me of when you say that is that every adversity brings with it the opportunity to access courage. I'll say that again. Every time we're in doubt or fear or worry or anxiety, whatever the emotion is that we're feeling, it's really an invitation to access courage. And you know what? We've all crossed the river before. There's all been times where we've come up against a challenge. It might be in real estate. It might be in health. It might be in finances. It might be in your relationship. Maybe you've had a loved one get sick from COVID. Maybe you've got aging parents that are in a precarious place, like an old folks home, right? And you're really nervous. Well, again, we can't change some of that reality, but what we can do, Stephen, is change the meaning of it. Not why is this happening to me, but what is it that I meant to learn from this? How can I grow from this? Because again, I love to access courage, because there was a time in my life where I would just kind of sit quietly in the corner and just, let other people have abundance, let other people go buy real estate, let other people go stand on stage. But it wasn't until I found out that, I'm worthy of abundance, just like everyone listening to this call is worthy of abundance, but you can't sit on the couch and wait for it to come. You got to take what we call intelligent and inspired action, right? Because it's not just the information, right? And we said this before, that if it was the information, and the information alone, every librarian in the US would be a multimillionaire. I can tell you they're not, because it's not the information, it's the application of the information that's important. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That application, you got to actually apply the information for it to be worth anything, right? Like knowledge, one of our favorite people, Tony Robbins, says, knowledge is in power. Knowledge is potential power. It's only through application that it becomes powerful.
That's it. And Tony also says that most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 2, 3, 5, or 10 years. That is, maybe this has kind of been like an airplane on the runway for you, but you're ready, to go down that runway, and 2021 could be the time you lift off. And again, I think it's worth repeating that most people really overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they could do in 2, 3, 5, or 10 years. And I'm sure you've probably experienced that in your own right, correct?
For sure. I mean, even right now, I have big dreams and goals of growth and things that we're doing. And looking back, I'm absolutely impressed with the growth that has already happened with the investor mindset and with Von Finch and our company and all the things that we've been able to do. But we have to be reminded to look at things from a long-term perspective, to be a little bit patient, because sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you want. And so I guess the point being of asking that question and kind of having you share a little bit without sharing specifics about those individual challenges is that even some of the most successful operators, investors, CEOs, Fortune 500 executives, they're all dealing with challenges, yet they're all figuring out a way forward, no matter what kind of challenge, no matter what kind of job loss or personal challenges, people are finding a way forward, and they're doing that through getting themselves in the right alignment and getting some of those beliefs in the right place.
Well, that's it. And again, that first belief is, if you think you can't, you can't. And if you think you can, you can. And so what I find that when I work with high performers, and I'm talking guys that, are kind of the Joe Fairless stature, that have, 50, 60, 80, 100, $200 million in assets under management, it's really where they literally know that if they have one choice or one path to go down, there's really no choice. There's nothing to choose. So we say, well, what else are you able to do? Now they come up with two things, right? I could do A or I could do B, right? But I'm a guy that loves to come up with three things or three potential paths, because that's when you truly have what we call options, right? And the more options we have and the higher performing we become, right, we're able to reverse engineer it. So let's put it in context. Let's say you come up with 3 or 4 different ways to literally solve the problem that you're having the challenge with. Well, let's say that you come up with 4 of those. So you remove 1 off the table. Right now you're left with 3. You take the 3 that are left, you move 1 of those off the table. Now you're left with 2, and you can easily and effortlessly pick the one that literally is going to give you the biggest opportunity for success. But again, most people think, Stephen, that there's only one path or only one way to do things, but that's not how high performers think. Does that make sense?
So what you're saying really is that if you're looking at a situation and you've got this problem, you've got this challenge that you're dealing with, and you think there's only one solution, you're going to feel pretty bound up. You're going to feel like you're in a box. It's going to be stressful. It's going to feel pretty limited. But by going through this process of asking yourself, what are all the options, not judging the options, but just brainstorming and coming up with what all those options could be, then all of a sudden you can realize like there's multiple different directions that I could go that could end up getting me to that end goal. And I really have a lot more potential in solving this problem than I once thought I did, because at first I was only focused on one thing. And now I can see that there's, at least three, if not a plethora of more options available.
That's exactly it. And again, like I used the quote earlier, we've all crossed the river before. There's always been a time, maybe in our youth or in our college days or when we were a youngster or a young child, where, man, we thought that there was only one way to get to a certain outcome. And then a friend, a teacher, a church minister, a parent, a sports coach said, have you thought of this? And so again, I think that it, speaks volumes today, because I think COVID has made a lot of people feel isolated, that, I'm not out at the conferences, or I'm not out at the meetup groups, or I'm not, doing all the things I did in 2019, 2018, 2017. But again, there's phenomenal virtual events. There's phenomenal podcasts like yours. What you're doing with Neil Bawa, what you're doing with Von Finch, what you're doing with the investor mindset stuff. I mean, that is absolutely what people need to tap into, but not just tap into it. Have conversations with other people about things you learn, because Tony says, that the secret to living is giving. And once you learn something and then you take it and you teach it to another individual, or you have a conversation around it, or you get their perspective, I'm telling you, man, that's when sparks fly and magic happens, because it does something we call elevating your emotions. Think of a time in your life where you taught somebody something and they lit up and you lit up from them lighting up. I'm telling you, we are all better together. And the more we can elevate each other's emotions, and remember that real estate, isn't like, oh my God, there's not enough to go around, or, oh my God, what if we're competing on the same deal? Or, oh my God, what if an investor, invests with someone else instead of me? That's really narrow-minded thinking, because I'm telling you, real estate has more than enough apartment buildings, houses, mobile home parks, self-storage parks. I don't care what asset class you're in to go around, and it always will, right? We're not having every single person leave their W-2 to become a real estate investor. So as some baby boomers die off, other people in their 20s and 30s are going to come up, and that's just the way the business cycle works. But what did you get out of that little soundbite, Steve?
Well, what I got out of it was that what we really want to focus on is how we can listen and engage with great content like we're listening to right now, listening to the Investor Mindset, listen to other podcasts when we're on our own with other people, but be able to share with others, because through that process of sharing and teaching others, we ourselves make it deeper into our own psyche. And therefore, it gives us that opportunity to truly change the belief. And that belief change or adopting a more powerful belief is what's going to give us the power and the motivation and the momentum to be able to move through any of the challenges that we know are going to come, and frankly, be able to just be a better person, a better leader, and get ourselves closer to where we want to be.
Well, you really said that beautifully, because it reminds me that, the entire goal of this is to make your certainty greater than your uncertainty. And that's something people should write down. How can I make my certainty greater than my uncertainty? Well, again, listen to Stephen's podcast, listen to the mindset conversation we're having, read great books, go to great virtual events, go to great live events, go to meetups, right? Educate yourself. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to go back to the fact that if you don't, take that on as something that is, near and dear to your success, you're really fooling yourself. That's why Napoleon Hill wrote a book. You may have heard of it. It's called Think and Grow Rich. Notice he didn't title it Do and Grow Rich, because the thinking comes before the doing. And to stack on that, as we think, we also have to remember that, as human beings, Steve, we have anywhere from 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but what most people forget is a lot of those are conscious and a lot of those are subconscious, right? We might think, what am I going to wear today? What am I going to eat today? Are my, friends going to be safe? Is anyone I know going to get COVID? Is Trump going to, kind of throw another wrinkle into this Biden, presidential election or whatever. I mean, we have all of these thoughts, but we also have thoughts that we don't even know are coming up for us, right? Will I be safe? Will I make money? Will I lose money? Right? All of these different things. And so the bad news is about all of these subconscious thoughts is that 75% of them are negative. So think about that. Out of 60 to 80,000 thoughts we have a day, conscious or subconscious, 75,000 or 75% of them, pardon me, are negative. So we're already behind the eight ball. So if you're not doing the mindset work, if you're not reading great books, if you're not really thinking about what is my focus, that's state management, or what is my identity, that's your story, or what is my best strategy, that's what you do, or my favorite one, and you know this, what is your standard? That is, what level are you holding yourself to do the personal growth work, to do the real estate, knowledge work, to better your terminology, to meet more brokers, meet more lenders, not be afraid to go up to investors and say, hey, you know what, can I share a unique opportunity to invest in a great deal? You're really cheating yourself out of what we call compound growth. Just like we think of compound growth for money as the eighth wonder of the world. Well, every time you get these neural networks firing, you're literally doing that stacking process of one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. And you want to ask why guys like you are successful, or guys like Joe Fairless are successful. With Ashcroft Capital, I coach people at Viking Capital, I coach people at Wildhorn Capital, and, literally hundreds of other, partners where literally one has a certain skill set that complements someone else's skill set. And that's where they're able to come together and rise up. The common theme that I find, where partnerships do not work out is where one's doing the mindset work and growing, and the other one has hit a plateau and they're not doing the work. Then there starts to be a little bit of a different disconnect, and we start to see partners maybe not agreeing to agree on how to move forward. So I can't emphasize enough that the people I coach, the people that have become absolute success stories, not only do the mindset work, but they make sure that their partner does a certain amount of it as well. Does that resonate?
It resonates a ton. And the way that I like to think about it is this idea of stacking is kind of like an exponential process. Mm-hmm. So if you have 6,000 thoughts or however many thoughts you have per day, and so many of them are progressive and pushing you in the right direction, and so many of them are pulling you backwards, you really want to be making sure that you're continuing to add more of those positive thoughts in so that they have the chance to double, to start taking over and really fill majority of your mind with the right ways of thinking. And so as we're on this topic of the best kind of beliefs, or beliefs that are really empowering, we talked about the belief of abundance. You talked about how that's really, really powerful. You've talked about a few others here. What are some other beliefs that some of your top clients, some of the best performers in the world carry? And, so we can start outlining and giving people an idea of what are some of those beliefs they might want to adapt or adopt. And if you're curious to know the answer to that question and much more, join us on the next episode. We're going to be diving in even deeper into some other gems. Great having you guys here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you've been listening for a while and you like what you hear, I welcome you to go drop a review on iTunes. Helps us reach even more bigger and better guests to be able to bring them directly to you guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you. Oh, thank you for joining for another incredible episode of the Investor Mindset. It's such a joy to be able to share these beliefs, these thoughts, these ways of living with each and every one of you guys, because I just know the power that it can make. And for some of you, for the select few of those people who are truly committed to going after their goals, the people who really believe that there's another level from where they're operating right now, the people who are ready to make change happen rapidly. And even if you're somebody who is stuck, who knows what you need to do, you know exactly the strategy, but for some reason you're not doing it, for those people, there's another option. There's another level that you can reach. And what I've noticed after coaching tons and tons of people through this process is that there's a simple formula. And when you can start to understand how to unlock those pieces within yourself, you'll start to feel more vibrant. You'll start to feel more energized. You'll start to make more money, and you'll start to enjoy the process through and through. So if you're somebody who's in a position, you're ready to make change happen, you're ready to invest in yourself, you really believe that the best investment, the truest ROI is investing in yourself because it continues to give back over and over again, then I invite you to schedule a call, share a little bit about yourself, and see how we might be able to help serve you with the investor mindset coaching. You can head right over to investormindset.com/discovery, set up a call, and if there's an opportunity to serve, I'll be right there with you. Thank you for listening to the Investor Mindset Podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with a friend. Head over to theinvestormindset.com to join the Insider Club, where we share tools and strategies from the top investors and entrepreneurs on how to take it to the next level.